The second annual edition of the Almanac came out on Wednesday, and it's got everything you need to get yourself prepared for the 23-24 college basketball season. Who's the top team in the land? Who are the All-Americans? Who's the top 100 players in college basketball? Capsules for all 362 Division I teams. Let's talk all about it.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. I'm your host today, Isaac Shade, and I want to thank you for tuning in to get everything you can about college basketball, your teams every day. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Hey, coming up on the show today, we are going to unpack several different of the parts of the Almanac, including bracketology, all-American teams, top 100 players. And I know that Andy just talked about some ACC commitments earlier this week. We got some more today. Miami, Duke, they're still rolling. We're going to update you on all that. So let's dive right on in to some things with the Almanac. First, we're going to look at some team-based things before we get to the individual-based things. By the way, if you're wanting to pick up the Almanac, it's actually a website this year. Last year, it was a PDF download. Now you just get access to a website that you can log into. That website is cbbalmanac.com, where you can purchase it, and then it'll give you everything you need to know. So let me start by giving you the Almanac's preseason top 10. Duke, Kansas, Purdue 3, Michigan State 4, Houston 5, Creighton 6, Marquette 7, UConn 8, Tennessee 9, and 10th, Florida Atlantic. So let me just provide some observations on that. I'll give you the rest of the top 25, and we'll look at a few other things. I got, sticking with the top 5 there, honestly, no big issues at all. If I had any quibble, I personally have Kansas 1, Purdue 2, and then Duke 3. But it's one of those things where it's like very reasonable, logical people can have any of those teams right there at the top, and I got no issue with it. It's just where I see those 3 teams falling right now. But that is your top 3, and it makes sense to me. Michigan State at 4. Yeah, absolutely. Wild to have 2 Big Ten teams in the top 5. Wild in that last year it really felt like we didn't have any elite Big Ten teams. We had some really strong, really good Big Ten teams, but nobody this level. And so that's why I call it wild, just to see that come back. And then, but midseason last year, all of a sudden here comes Purdue, and it's like, oh, wait, we do have an elite team in the Big Ten. And I know they flamed out in the tournament, but trust me, this Purdue team is going to be really good. Houston at 5. Houston, now a Big 12 team, keep in mind, at number 5. I have them a little bit lower, but still in the top 10, so I got no issues there. And then 6, 7, 8, you have 3 Big East teams back to back to back: Creighton, Marquette, UConn, and believe in all 3 of those teams. You just heard Andy and I talk earlier this week that we think the Big East has a clear top 3, and it's these teams. So it makes sense for me for them to be sitting here all bunched up together in the top 10. Number 9, Tennessee. A lot of that, as we said on our SEC preview show, is going to be based on Zakai Ziegler's health, and hopefully he's good to go. And then number 10, Florida Atlantic. And listen, I know a lot of people are going to hear that and roll their eyes and say, oh, the mid-major who just kind of, thanks to the bracket falling apart, made it all the way to the Final Four last year. And sure, they were helped they beat Memphis in the first round. There was a little bit of referee help there. Maybe they shouldn't have won. And then their second game, they benefited from Purdue losing. And so they got to play FDU in the second round and then just kept going. But Sweet 16 Elite 8 wins, those were legit against high level opponents. And then they bring back everyone. And now they're in the AAC. They've moved on from Conference USA. This isn't some flash in the pan. They won 31 games in the regular season. Florida Atlantic is going to be a legit basketball team, and I think personally is worthy of a top 10 ranking. Now, if it was like, first in the nation or whatever, preseason number one, that would be too much for me. That would say, okay, we're being a prisoner of the moment here, a prisoner of prediction based on what we just saw most recently. I don't think it's that. I think they're a legit top 10. This is a good spot for them. Let me give you the rest of the top 25. Gonzaga 11, Texas 12, Arizona 13, Miami 14, Kentucky 15, San Diego State 16, Texas A&M 17, Villanova hopping back in at 18, Baylor 19, Alabama 20, Arkansas 21, St. Mary's 22, USC 23. That would obviously be Southern California, not South Carolina. North Carolina 24th, and then the Florida Gators at 25. And so that rounds out what we're looking at as the top 25. It's funny that last year, North Carolina was picked preseason number one. And this year, after what happened to them last year, you see the pendulum swing back to now they're ranked 24th. I think that's actually probably a little bit too low, interestingly enough. Now, in terms of conference breakdown, as you look at this top 25, the team that has the conference, that has the most teams in this top 25, not the Big 12, the nation's typical, presumed best conference, not the Big East, a conference that I think will be right there, probably second or third best conference in the nation. Not the Big 10 with all its depth that was right up there last year. It's the SEC. The SEC has 6 teams in this top 25 poll. Coming in tied for second, though, Big East and Big 12 each have 4 teams. ACC has 3. Big 10 and WCC and Pac-12 each have 2. So that's so interesting with the Big 10. They have Purdue, Michigan State, top 4, but then literally no other Big 10 teams in this top 25. How's that for a takeaway? And then the AAC has 1 team, that's Florida Atlantic, and Mountain West has 1 team. Obviously, that's San Diego State, looking to prove similarly that their run to the national championship game last year was also no fluke. Bracketology, we don't really need to say much about that, although it's in here, but basically they just based it off of their top 25. And so, for example, the 1 seeds are the top 4: Duke, Kansas, Purdue, Michigan State. 2 seeds, UConn, Creighton, Marquette, and Houston. That's teams 5 through 8. 3 seeds are FAU, Tennessee, Texas, and Gonzaga. That's teams 9 through 12. And then San Diego State, Miami, Kentucky, and Arizona are the projected 4 seeds, which is teams 13 through 16. So makes sense. Nothing, just that's the way it breaks down based on what their top 25 it is. And that's what they've done. So what I want to do next is moving from what the Almanac's telling us and predicting about the teams to talking about the guys that make up those teams. Who made it onto the Almanac's All-American lists? Who made it onto their top 100 lists? We'll look at all of that in just a second. But first, I need to tell you that today's episode of Locked On College Basketball is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire, it can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates out there. And that's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. It's really easy to create a free job post on LinkedIn Jobs, and then you just add that job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your profile to spread the news that you're looking to hire. After that, you can use simple tools like screening questions to help find who those qualified and experienced candidates are, so you can quickly figure out who you want to interview and ultimately hire. Because honestly, hiring the right team member, it's going to have a positive and measurable impact on your business. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Hey, I know we're hanging out on Locked On College Basketball, but if you also love college football, today, Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube page is Locked On College Football Kickoff Live, coming at you, helping you get ready for this weekend. And this weekend, there's a ton of phenomenal football action. So many unranked games. I'm personally really looking forward to the Ohio State Notre Dame game. Should be a great one. So, Locked On College Football Kickoff Live, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube channel. Check it out. All right, let's get back to the Almanac. We've just looked at a couple of the team things in terms of rankings and bracketology and stuff like that. But seriously, this Almanac, it has capsules for all 32 conferences in Division I, all 362 teams in Division I, Player of the Year voting for each, all sorts of stuff. Just great content. Make sure you go check it out. You won't be disappointed. Right now, I want to move into talking about the All-Americans that they have selected. What the Almanac did was vote on 3 teams. And so there are, thankfully, 5 players on each team. It's not like is it the Pac-12 that does like 10 or 11 dudes on the first team? None of that monkey business. We got 5 dudes on the first team, 5 dudes on the second team, and 5 dudes on the third team. Let me give you those, and then we'll just see what we're thinking about them. First team, reigning National Player of the Year, Zach Edey from Purdue. No-brainer right there. Next, Hunter Dickinson, the Michigan transfer who's now at Kansas. Ryan Kalkbrenner, another big at Creighton. Kyle Filipowski, sophomore at Duke, who had an incredible first year. Really curious and excited to see what he does as a follow-up to that. And then Tyler Kolek, the do-it-all guard at Marquette. Remember, he won Conference Player of the Year, and Marquette did, the regular season and the conference tournament for the Big East. So really no arguments there. Hunter Dickinson, I know we have this consensus of like, he's going to Kansas now and things are going to be awesome. But there were times in Michigan games that I've watched the past couple years where he just kind of disappeared a little bit. And for somebody who's going to be on the first team, he can't do it. Now, I would imagine nothing against Juwan Howard or Michigan or anyone there, but I would imagine going to play for Bill Self, things are going to be a little bit different. So that's my thought there. We'll see what happens. But that's if I was to take one person off of this list and change somebody else in, it would be Hunter Dickinson. But I know a lot of people out there, a lot of you are going to vehemently disagree with that take. Great. I want to hear about it. Second team, here we go. Donovan Clingan from UConn. You remember last year, he played second fiddle in the front court to Adama Sanogo, understandably so. As a freshman, he was just kind of learning the ropes a little bit, but was really efficient in the minutes he did get. Expect him to take a huge leap this year. Clearly, so does the Almanac. Next, Tyrese Proctor, another sophomore at Duke. Going to be a dynamic backcourt this year with he and Jeremy Roach. Really excited to see those guys play together alongside Kyle Filipowski. Duke really took off when Coach Shire handed him the keys to the offense, let Jeremy Roach go play the 2, and things were really rolling. So we'll see if Proctor and Filipowski can get enough votes when this actually happens at the end of the season to make these teams, but not shocking to see that there. Next, the little man transferring from Oral Roberts to Texas, Max Asmus. He of fame of that Oral Roberts run in the tournament a couple years ago, just score it all little man who can really, really fill it up. Obviously, we're waiting to see, can he still do what he did at Oral Roberts in the Big 12? I think so, but we got to wait and see it. But I feel really good about him being able to do that. It's interesting that it's him and not any of Texas' other players that make it onto this list. Next on the second team, Wade Taylor IV at Texas A&M. If you watched our SEC show, he's my pick for SEC Player of the Year, and I think Texas A&M is going to have a great year. This is a great choice. And then also on the second team is North Carolina's Armando Bacot, the leading all-time rebounder in North Carolina history, the leading double-double man in North Carolina history. This makes a ton of sense. I think a lot of us expect North Carolina to rebound a good bit this year. How much? We'll wait and see, but that's what we're looking at. This makes sense to see Armando Bacot here. Looking at the third team, we've got Umar Ballo from Arizona, Trey Alexander from Creighton, another Big East representative, Justin Moore from Villanova, another Big East representative, Tyson Walker from Michigan State, and then Tyler Perry, who has transferred over to Kansas State. So there are your top 15, not necessarily top 15 players, as you'll hear in a second, but the top three, the All-American teams preseason for the Almanac. Again, nothing really major that I look at this and I'm like, I don't know about that. Tyler Perry, if there was somebody to pull off the third team, I might do that, which is interesting because we'll get to their top 100 players in a minute. And just based on the top 15, he wouldn't have made it in. So it's interesting that inclusion is there. In terms of the national individual awards, the Almanac is going with Zach Edey to repeat as National Player of the Year. Makes a ton of sense. His team's essentially the same. But, I mean, if you're asking me to pick Zach Edey versus the field, got to take the field. That's where the smart money would be. But barring injury, if you're just asking me, can he do it again? No reason to think he couldn't. Defensive Player of the Year. The Almanac is picking Ryan Kalkbrenner from Creighton, who was also on that first team preseason All-American. Makes a ton of sense. Again, just like Zach Edey, can't fault it at all. For Freshman of the Year, they're going with the guy that's right at the top of the heap. That's Isaiah Collier out at USC. Obviously, we know Bronny James' ability to play this year is up in question right now, but I think, with Boogie Ellis coming back, USC should be a really good team. Very curious to see how Collier adjusts and does at USC this year. Now, also, as we stick with the individual players, the Almanac has in it, they vote on a list of the top 100 players in college basketball. Now, of those 100 players, you think, well, probably the same thing they did with Bracketology, where they just slot in teams into the seeding based on where they had them in that top 25 poll. Not quite. There's a couple differences in this, but 14 of those 15 guys on the 3 preseason All-American teams are also in the top 15. The lone person out is Tyler Perry, who was actually 21st. In fact, it was Dayron Holmes from Dayton who was 15th on their list. Let me round out the top 30 for you. In addition to all those guys we just named, LJ Cryer, the former Baylor player who's transferred to Houston, which means he's actually still in the Big 12, funny enough, is 16. Ryan Nemhard, who was Creighton's point guard, transferred to Gonzaga, is 17. John L. Davis, sticking around at FAU, number 18. Aiden Mahaney, number 19, sophomore at St. Mary's. If you don't know this name and you're thinking, why is St. Mary's here? Why were they ranked? Where were they ranked in that top 20? They were 22nd. You're like, what on earth? St. Mary's, what are they doing here? Is this just so that we think that Gonzaga is going to have someone to contend with in the West Coast Conference? Absolutely not. If you are, a West Coast person, obviously you've seen Aiden Mahaney, you've stayed up and watched him, or you don't have to stay up. But if you are East or Central time zone and you've not stayed up to watch Aiden Mahaney play, you are missing out. This dude is a ton of fun to watch. I love that he's right here on this list. 20th is Isaiah Collier, who we just talked about, the highest ranked freshman. Interestingly, we had to get to number 20 before we got to a freshman. I don't think we have that all the time in years past. 21, we already mentioned, is Tyler Perry. 22, Jamal Shed, who, with Marcus Sasser moving on from Houston, I think Shed's going to need to take a big step forward. Obviously, we just talked about his new teammate, LJ Cryer, who should be phenomenal for Kelvin Sampson. I expect Houston to be really good, and lots of people do, but really curious to see now what Shed is able to do, along with Terrence Arsenault, another great backcourt player, but especially now that Marcus Sasser is going to be gone. 23rd on the list, Terrence Shannon Jr. at Illinois. 24, Reese Beekman of Virginia. Both of those are guys who are going to need to have big years for their teams. PJ Hall at Clemson. I love watching this dude play in the paint, and just tough-nosed, hard-nosed kind of player, and excited that he's back. Nigel Pack at Miami. We look to see him take a big step forward with Jordan Miller gone, with Colton Wong gone. Colton Wong, I do that all the time. Good grief. That's the baseball player. Help me get this right, America. Isaiah Wong. It just came to me. The Wong is right. I always get all my baseball and college basketball mixed up. With Isaiah Wong gone, Nigel Pack is going to take a big step forward. Speaking of somebody being gone and taking a big step forward, number 27 on this list is RJ Davis from North Carolina. Obviously, you know Caleb Love is now gone to Arizona. Caleb Love comes in at this list at 54th, by the way, but a lot of people think this will be a big boon for RJ Davis now that Caleb Love is gone. 28th, Bryce Hopkins from Providence should have another great year. 29, we just had Nigel Pack at 26. 29 is his front court teammate, Norchad Omier, one of just my favorite bigs in the country. I love watching him play and scoop up rebound after rebound. And then 30th, Janai Broome from Auburn. Now, of course, who is number 100? Mr. Irrelevant, but you get the point. On this list of the top 100 players in college basketball, stinking Fletcher Loyer, not Foster. No apologies needed here to the Loyer family, because Fletcher Loyer, I'm getting his name right, is number 100 on this list. I love to see it. So we've got a Purdue player at number 1, Zach Edey, and a Purdue player at number 100 in one of his guards, and Fletcher Loyer. Now, a player not on this list, but one who could be soon, is Jalil Bethea, who just committed to Miami this week. And they ain't the only ACC team. Duke just reeled in somebody on Thursday as well. We'll talk about both of these guys in just a second. But first, this episode of Locked On College Basketball is brought to you by FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. You can bet on all sorts of stuff, spreads, player props, over-under, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Oh my goodness. Miami. We, like Andy just a couple days ago, talked about all these ACC players that committed last weekend, all the good stuff happening. But then on Wednesday, Miami gets their highest rated recruit ever, at least per 247 Sports. He edges out Lonnie Walker IV, and that is Jalil Bethea. This man ranked 7th in the nation, at least at 247 Sports. Clear indication. Getting somebody of this caliber from the 24 class, Coach L ain't going anywhere, at least for another couple of years. If he's continuing to be able to land guys at this level, it's an indication to me that Miami is a place right now. It is a location, a place you want to be. Part of that is Bethea. He chooses Miami over not just like, you won out over, like Illinois and Louisville or something like that. No. Bethea chooses Miami over Kansas and Villanova. Two like top dogs in the sport. He chooses Miami. You love to see it. He's a 6'4" shooting guard. They've had some success at Miami. Coach L knows how to coach those guards up. From an interview he did with On3, he compared his game to Devin Booker, to Tyler Hero, to Swaggy Jordan Poole, right? Like, that's who he's saying his game is. This dude, I love the confidence there. And so he's not the only one. You remember, Canes have now landed. They just got one last weekend that Andy talked about, but they have now landed their first 3 commits in the 2024 class in a span of 16 days, all here in September. Another 6'4" shooting guard, Austin Swartz, committed back on September 5th. And then over this past weekend on September 16th, Isaiah Johnson Arrigu, a 6'7" small forward, also committed. And then now Bethea. They are loading up down in South Florida. Coach L is 73 and he is rolling. Hey, and it's not like the current guys that are going to be all gone. They could potentially all still be around. Matthew Cleveland, who just came over from Florida State, is going to be a junior. Bensley Joseph, sophomore, or actually, excuse me, that's what they are right now. So they could still be around. Matthew Cleveland's a junior. He could still be there. Bensley Joseph is a sophomore. He could still be there. Wooga Poplar's a junior. He could still be there. Norchad Omier is a 4th-year junior. He could be back next year. Nigel Pack is a 4th-year junior. He could be back next year. And then you bring in like this trio and who knows who else in the class of 24. Watch out for the Canes, man. They're currently 4th in the class rankings of 2024 at 247. Very seriously, they've been sitting up in that upper echelon of the ACC, and they look poised to stick around and be there for a while. Coach L, he's doing it at 73. You love to see it. Now, not to be outdone, here's the thing. Duke lands their own commitment on Thursday from Kon Knueppel, a 6'5", 205-pound small forward, 16th at 247's composite. So now he is their third commit in the class of 2024, moving them into the top spot in the class, overtaking their rival, the North Carolina Tar Heels. So those other two commits in Duke's class, Isaiah Evans, who's 11th, and Darren Harris, who is 56th. So Duke Landon dudes, Miami Landon dudes, the ACC is doing work. And what do I mean by that? Check this out. At 247, in terms of class rankings, the ACC currently holds 3 of the top 4 spots. Now, I know it's going to change as more recruits start committing in the coming weeks and months. But as of right now, Duke is number 1 in terms of class rank at 247, North Carolina 2, Miami 4. They got 3 of the top 4 spots. They've got 4 of the top 7 spots. Why? Because Notre Dame is 7th. And they've got 6 of the top 14 spots. Syracuse 13, NC State 14. So curious to see if the ACC can keep this up, if others are going to trump it as they start getting their commits in. We'll see what happens. But right now, the ACC is ruling the roost in 2024 recruiting. Now, speaking of the ACC, you might be aware we still do not have a schedule for conference games from the ACC. Come on, man. We're in the final week and a half or so of September, and we don't have a conference schedule for the ACC. ACC, please do better next year. Thank you. Signed, a concerned college basketball talker. But we are finally going to get it next Tuesday evening on ACC Network's Nothing But Net at 7 p.m. Eastern. They're going to have the women's ACC conference game schedule release with Kelsey Riggs. It'll also have Kelly Gramlich, Ivory Latta, and Muffet McGraw. And then the guys will be at 8, also hosted by Kelsey Riggs, along with Joel Berry and Carlos Boozer will both be on there to help Kelsey unpack that. So finally, next week, we're going to get an ACC schedule. Looking forward to that and being able to see what we get from that conference. We've got just about every other schedule. I can't even think of which ones we don't have yet. I need to go look at that. Anyway, that's it for this week on Locked On College Basketball. Great to be able to talk about all this Almanac stuff. Great getting ready for the season in that way. Love seeing these guys starting to commit. You know, we're going to get some as we roll into October and November, and you start getting visits during different teams' versions of Midnight Madness or Late Night or whatever each school calls it. And that'll be great and give us lots of fun stuff to talk about in the recruiting game. Folks, I hope you've had a great week. I hope you have a great weekend. We can't wait to be back with you on Monday's episode of Locked On College Basketball. Andy's going to be away this weekend on a birthday trip celebrating his birthday, which is on Saturday. And so he and I won't do Monday together like we usually do. We'll actually do our show together next week, midweek sometime. But on Monday and Tuesday, you'll have me, and then Andy will do 2 of the 3 later in the week, and we will do 1 of them together. So that's next week's schedule look ahead for you. You can follow the show on Twitter at LockedOnCBB. You can follow me at Isaac Shade. Please make sure to subscribe on audio and video formats. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button so we know you are here. And we'd love your comments on today's show on your thoughts on these All-American teams and the rankings that the Almanac has put out. As always, apologies to the Lawyer family, even though I said Fletcher today. Go Wildcats, and until next week, peace.